Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei. I am so excited to paint with you today and to do another watercolor journal page in our series here. And today we are going to paint a peony. So that time of year, peonies are popping up all over. We're getting ready to, and that's what we're going to paint. All right, so for our colors, I am using my core paints. Let me zoom out a little bit here so you can see my palette a little bit better. So I'm using my core palette, QOR by Golden. I have two brushes. I have a size 10 and a size 4 round brush, and we're painting in our watercolor journals here. Mine's a bow hung journal, and I'm going to be using quinacridone magenta, but any pink, rose madder color that you have will be great. Let's put that down up here. And then for my greens today, instead of using sap green, which I usually gravitate towards, I'm going to use this green gold color. This is going to be my highlight color. And then I'm also going to use phthalo blue. And I'm going to mix it with the green gold to create a green. So I'm going to use these three colors. And then let's make this a little darker. So that's the darkest version of my magenta. And that is what we're going to use to mix all of our colors. And I'm just thinking, oh, actually, I'm going to use one more color. I am going to use some Diarylide yellow. There we go. So Diarylide yellow for our center. And I'm going to mix that with my magenta. We'll get to all that. All right, so peonies. Peonies are these really big flowers. You can paint them really loosely. You probably see a lot of folks do that. Or you can paint them really detailed. We're going to do something kind of in between. So we're going to do a really open one here with lots of petals going upwards and then some falling out, and you'll see. All right, so we're going to have like our center here. So we're going to see inside the peony because it's going to be opening up quite a bit. So I'm just kind of drawing in a center here that I want to use. Let me draw it a little darker so you can see it. You don't have to draw yours that dark. And then we're going to have, so what I want to do is I want to draw petals kind of folding up. So this is the top of the petal and it folds up and toward. Okay, this way. We're going to do another one over here. So these are going to be over this center area. We'll get rid of a whole bunch of these lines in just a minute. But you can see how they're kind of scooping up and going towards it. And you can see my petals are really messy. Peony petals are notoriously very fluttery and jagged and messy. So these petals behind are just kind of falling out in a way. And then we have the petals down here that are actually falling forward and down. So we're going to see a lot more. So this is the inside of the petal here, and it's falling away like this. Like as it's opening up. Let's draw a big one down here. And a lot of folks, when they're doing these and they're doing it really loose, they'll just paint these in. They don't draw all of this out. And we're going to demonstrate that opening up with darker color in here where the petals kind of come together. So, and then we'll throw a few more things in here. Okay, so let's do something more over here. This one is coming up this way. Let's throw something like right there. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. I don't know how helpful that was. I'm going to get rid of lots of these pencil lines. I'm going to lighten a lot of things to start painting. So the first thing I'm actually going to do, I'm trying to decide if I want to do my center first or if I want to save that. Let me lighten these up over here. And if you don't stay exactly in your pencil lines, that's okay. That's why I said this is kind of like a loose structure slash somewhat structured. Okay. I'm gonna go and we have like quite the shadow on here today because it's so dark out. I'm not getting the natural light I normally get. Okay, so we're just gonna start. I guess we're doing petals first. And I'm gonna always paint kind of in the direction of the petals. So putting on this first layer, I'm gonna leave lots of white spaces in all of these. Then I want to keep the edges kind of jagged. I will say this is not a flower that I paint often. So now we're coming down this way. Rinse off my brush. You can see, and this isn't even, we're going to add more layers on, but like the part in the center where they kind of meet, you want that to be darkest. We're going to want this part to be darker than the rest. And again, don't be afraid to leave white space or very light color in some areas. Working our way around. So this one comes up this way. Down and around. We have a few more petals on the side over here. And don't worry, we're going to do a little more work. It's okay to leave white spaces also between petals. All right. So now I'm going to add, so far we've only used magenta. Rinse off my brush, and now I'm just using a damp brush to kind of move around and blend out some of this darker color I put on here. And then we're going to let this dry, especially the areas around the center here, and then we're going to put in our yellow center, kind of come and do a little bit more on our petals, add a little bit more contrast and depth and shadow. All right, so let's let that dry and then put in our center area, do a little bit more details on the petals, and add in some beautiful green leaves. Okay, so let's get some of our Diarrhea yellow out. But I am going to water it down. I don't want it quite as dark. And I am just going to paint that right here in the center. Just kind of fill in this area. Drop in a few areas, a little darker color. And the magic is going to happen when we add in, we're going to mix this and magenta together to create an orange, and we're going to fill in some texture in the center. But right now you can just drop in some yellow. And then let's go back to our magenta. And now let's go back and add in some more texture and more contrast to a few of these petals, especially at the areas where they kind of come together. You want those to be darker, or at least I do. So we're creating depth and shadows as different parts of the petal kind of create shadows over other areas. Some texture. And it is easy to get carried away with this stage a little bit. Just keep painting and painting and painting till everything all of a sudden is the same color. So be careful of that. So when I paint like near the edge of something, like here, I want the petal behind to be darker and I want it to be next to this petal, but I want this to stay lighter so they separate from each other. And you don't have to add details and texture to everything. Leave some of it nice and light and airy. So let's leave it there. And let's do some leaf work. So with my leaves, I'm going to use this green gold, which is a light green, yellow-green color. And I am going to make just some leaf shapes. These are going to be kind of skinny leaves, a little expressive. And this is very yellow for a leaf, but this is going to be the highlight. We're going to put some darker green color on top. So now I'm going to take my phthalo blue, I'm going to mix it with this color, I'm going to get this beautiful green color. And I'm going to let some of that yellow kind of shine through on some of these. And then we can even take a little magenta and add it to our green to mute it a little bit. I'm going to put some more of this like right close to the flowers. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to my smaller brush, and I'm going to take some of that yellow and mix it in with my magenta to create an orange. There we go, beautiful little orangey brown color. If it's too bright and you need it to be a little duller, more of a browny orange, you just add a little green to it. With all the colors we need here. All right, so, and then in the center, I am going to start, my yellow is still a little wet, so I'm gonna let it dry a little bit longer, but then we're just going to basically start to create these little loopy shapes that give the texture of like what you might see in the center. So let's let it dry, and then we'll come back and I'll add those textures in. Okay, we let things dry a little bit, just took a few minute break, and now I'm going to come in and make these loopy shapes with the tip of my brush. I want to leave yellow exposed in the middle of the loop. I don't want to just make lots of little teardrop like solid shapes. And I want the yellow to show through as the highlight. So you do want to make sure this is dry so it's not bleeding, otherwise it'll just be a flat color. And then we can go in with an even, maybe slightly darker color. Let's take some of that green, mix it in with our magenta and yellow. Makes it even like darker brown color. And we can pop that into a few spots just to give it a little more contrast along the edge here. There we go. And last but not least, if you want to go in with any more fine details on this last layer, you can darken up, add a little green to our magenta, and that gives us more like a burgundy color for like these dark parts right in here. That just gives you a whole nother layer of contrast. Contrast is the name of the game. A lot of folks will kind of stop before they've achieved quite enough contrast, and they just can't put their finger on why their painting is looking a little flat or dull, and it's the contrast. Often, not always, but especially if you're new to art in general or new to painting. Don't get me wrong, you can have really beautiful, very subtle images with almost no contrast. There we go. So there, that just pushes those shadows a little bit deeper, a little bit further in, which in turn pulls out the highlights, makes the highlights pop out further. So there you have it. You can add some more detail or more contrast with a darker color of green onto your leaves if you want to add any like veining on them. I just encourage you to be careful when you're painting relatively loose and adding too many veins on leaves. It starts to look a little campy. Where you put the shadows or change the color of the leaf around the edges can give the impression that a leaf is folded over. So you're looking at it from a side angle. with like a scooped edge like this one here. Go. So now these look great, and now these look flat over here because they need the same treatment. Sorry, gotta pull out a little more color here. There we go. There is our beautiful peony with some gorgeous little green leaves. Awesome. All right, well, thank you for painting with me. I love looking at this one and looking at this color palette versus this painting. They don't look like they go together, but we used all of these colors in this painting. So thank you so much for painting with me. Don't forget to check out the description of the video for links to supplies and materials that I use regularly. Go ahead and find me on Instagram. Yeah, and come back here for our next watercolor journal page. We have one more page in this particular journal. This page is it. This is the back of the book. And then we'll move on to a new one. So thanks for painting with me today, and I'll see you for the next one. Take care, y'all.